This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, good morning, everyone. We'll get started in a minute. Good morning, everyone. Much for joining. And I don't know about people in other locations, but in Hyderabad, it's 13 degrees Celsius and definitely freezing cold for Hyderabadis. And you're able to make it even if you're from Hyderabad. That's a great thing. I know people in the West might be complaining, oh, 13 degrees is nothing. All right. Very good morning again, and thanks for joining. Let's get started. I hope you all can hear me well and see my screen. Make some noise, some confirmation.
Yes, Kiran, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you. So, welcome to today's demo. So, this demo is about talking about our course, which will be DevOps with Azure. Okay. So, this is not just for Azure DevOps, which is one tool. We are talking about Azure Cloud and DevOps. Okay. I'll explain about these things in detail in this demo. All right. Hello. I'm Kiran. Okay. So, let me talk about myself for a minute. Thanks for joining the demo again. About me. So I have about 10 years of experience in DevOps and site reliability engineering. So before DevOps or site reliability engineering, it was called as platform engineering. So I've been working as a platform engineer, then DevOps, and then in different roles like SRE from about 2010. I'm passionate about technology and also teaching. Personally, I like movies and occasionally read books. Um, my areas of interest are container orchestration. You might have heard a lot about Docker and Kubernetes. That's what I'm talking here. Cloud, automation, and free and open source software and Linux. So that's about me. I'm a certified Kubernetes administrator and I'm a certified Azure administrator. Uh, So let's talk about what this course is all about. So you all joined to understand what are you going to learn if you join this course, right? So let's see what we are going to cover in this course. Okay. So at a very high level, with at a bird's eye view, what are we going to learn? Okay, understand IT architecture and software development lifecycle. Okay, so we are not going to do software development, but we understand how software development works. Learn Azure key services in Azure. Okay, so Azure is a public cloud which has a lot of offerings, but what we are going to focus is some of the areas that are expected of out of a DevOps engineer to know. Okay, um, gain in-depth understanding of DevOps as a practice. What does DevOps do, and at each stage, what does at each stage in the software development lifecycle, what does a DevOps engineer do? Hands-on with DevOps toolset on Azure Infra. So we are going to learn a lot of DevOps tools. I'll talk about those tools in the coming slides, but all that we are going to learn in Azure on Azure infrastructure. Okay, so we are going to use Azure as our lab. So you both get hello, mic check. Can you all hear me still?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we
Sorry,
can
there
hear
was
you.
some yeah, there was some kind of disturbance. All right. So hands-on with DevOps toolset on Azure infrastructure. So whatever we are going to do, whatever DevOps tool we are going to learn, we are going to learn on Azure itself. So you also get thorough experience on Azure. Yes, obviously the focus is on automation, a lot of automation. Okay, that's what we are going to focus in terms of Linux shell scripting, in terms of other tools. We are going to do a lot of automation. All right. Okay, and before I proceed, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt and ask me. But if it is a generic question not related to the topic that we are discussing at that moment, please keep it till the end. But if it is something related to the topic that I am talking at that time, please let me pause and you can ask me. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Moving on.
Kiran, one quick question.
Hmm.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you said it is not about Azure DevOps. It is, I mean, what are the DevOps tools available publicly on
Hmm.
Azure platform we are going to learn, not the Azure DevOps itself, right? Am I correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So we are going to
So
cover
then
Azure
in that
DevOps
case,
also.
yeah, in that
Hmm.
case, there are separate DevOps tools available for Azure users.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to that part. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cloud. Let's talk about cloud. So that's all this course is all about, right? I mean, that's one of the important sections of the cloud. So when you hear the word cloud in terms of computing, okay, not I mean, before 2010 it meant something else. It means something else now. So what comes to your mind when you hear the term cloud?
Cloud moves from one location to another location.
You're talking about the clouds in the sky?
Yes.
No, no, I'm talking about the clouds,
Sorry,
uh,
sorry. So your data
cloud
center,
computing,
virtual data center, it is.
Group of
virtual data
components.
center. Okay, anyone else?
Group of
It's a
components.
nothing but trust, right?
Sorry, what was that?
Group of
Nothing but
components here.
service.
Group of companies. Okay,
No,
companies are
components.
computers.
Components.
Components. Okay, okay. Anything else?
It's a nothing but storage, sir.
It's a storage service. Okay. Anything else?
API with storage.
Sorry,
APIs with storage.
APIs with storage. Okay. Anything else? All right. You're all partially right. Let's see what cloud computing is as per Wikipedia first. Then we are going to expand on that. Okay. Cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computing resources. Right. So someone said components. So let's call them as resources. On-demand availability of computing resources. Highlight that on-demand word. We'll come back to that. Cloud is a collection of data centers managed by a cloud provider. So one of you said that it's virtual data center. Yep. So it's a collection of data centers managed by a cloud provider. Who this cloud provider could be? It could be, who do we have these days? Microsoft is one of the biggest cloud provider, Azure, AWS, okay, provided by Amazon. Then you have GCP, Google Cloud Platform managed by Google. You have IBM Smart Cloud. You have Oracle Cloud. You have Alibaba Cloud. What else do we have? You have DigitalOcean. These are all small players, but yeah, they're still in the market. You have DigitalOcean. We have something like what else? Yeah, I think these are the prominent players now. Okay. So importantly, what this cloud computing does is users can rent resources on a pay as you use model without the upfront costs. Okay, this is a very, very important thing to understand. The first thing is on demand availability of computing resources. And lastly, we said it's you can rent resources on a pay as you use model without the upfront costs. Okay, so let's say you are a let's assume for a minute you are a web developer or a application developer. You have a great idea to develop a mobile app. Okay, so back in the day, let's say pre pre cloud days, if you have to do this, okay, what you need to do is um you have to buy a physical server. Okay, what's a physical server? A computer, right? What is a server? Nothing but a computer, right? You have seen a physical server. It looks like your typical old time CPUs. Have you seen a CPU or a as a desktop computer? CPU is a simple word or a generic term in terms. So have you seen a desktop computer? Have you ever used a desktop computer, not the all-in-ones? So a server might look something like this. Okay, just like your CPU desktop tower. Um, so this might look something like this. Okay, so you have to buy this server, and see, if you are running any application, or you want others to access your application. If you want to run it locally only on your laptop, that's fine, you don't need any servers. But if you need your application to be accessed by others, you need a place where it runs. Okay, it could be your laptop, but our laptops are not suitable to run 24/7 and accept incoming traffic all the time. That is not possible, right? Definitely not possible. So let's say you decide to host an application. So you buy this is, I'm talking about before the cloud days. Okay, before the days of cloud, what you would typically do is buy a server, physical server from Dell or HP or who else. I don't think Microsoft makes servers. Primarily Dell and HP are the leading server makers in the market. So you buy a server from them. Okay, you plug in your monitor and install the operating system, and on top of it maybe create some VMs and start running your application on top of it, and you expose the application to end users. Okay, so end users, you have to buy a public IP from your ISP or somewhere and assign the DNS name. Okay, to the you have to buy a website name. Even if it's a mobile app, it needs a DNS name, domain name. So you buy a domain name, you assign the IP address, and all these things you do. Okay, so let's say and these things are costly. In fact, these things are costly. So it's not like you can buy one for 50,000 or 60,000. I mean, you could have one for 80,000, but not really very high specs. But if you want to have at least something like 32 GB or um, you know 12 cores of CPU or something like that, it costs you anywhere around between 1,50,000 or 1,80,000 in Indian currency. Okay, so you buy one, but what if your business fails? Your application, you thought when you created it, it was looking fantastic because we all like what we create. But when you continue to use it, you understand that, when people started using it, there's not much interest. Your concept failed. So your server is of no use now except for playing some games or something. Okay, take the other scenario. Your application has become a big hit. Okay, more and more users started accessing your application. That means more load on your CPU. See, whenever users are accessing, the traffic is coming to your server and there is activity on this server. So that means the CPU will be utilized high, the memory will be utilized high. For example, if you open hundreds of applications on your computer, what happens? Let's say you have a 8 GB machine with a 8 cores i7 processor, very good configuration. But let's say you open 100 instances of Firefox, 100 instances of Chrome. What will happen to your system?
It will hang.
It
It will
crash.
hang, it will crash, right? So the same thing happens to a server as well. Nothing different there. So what do you need to do? You need to buy another server so that you have to share the load between these two servers. Okay, so you buy a new server and configure that. Again, the same process you did with this, you will do with this one. Okay, maybe then you also need a load balancer, because when you're announcing your application, or you're letting others access your application, you have to give them a public IP. But if you're running on multiple machines, maybe what's wrong with this one? Okay, when you're running in multiple machines, you would need a, something like a load balancer, which will split the load between these two machines. I mean, users request will come to this machine, and this machine will split the load between these two machines, these two computers. Okay, server is nothing but a computer, just remember that. Okay, okay, so you need another additional device called as a load balancer, right? So these all cost you money, a lot of money in fact. And if the load continues to increase, you further need to, buy new machines. And you don't know if it's going to make you profit. Right now, you're making it free, so everyone is buying, so in the hope that one day one investor will come. But you're investing a lot of money on your resources, and as the resources grow, you need to have cooling system for this, because these things are going to make your room very, very hot. Okay, so these are running 24/7. You need space, you need cooling systems. Okay, even for a simple gaming systems these days, we need coolers, right? Any gamers here? So these things also would need cooling system around them. Okay, then you need to buy additional things like your switches, routers, of course, all these things. Not the regular router, you need a better sophisticated router. Okay, you need switches to connect all these things, because all these are hardwired with the network cables. Okay, so you will need to buy switches, uh, whatnot. So many things you need to buy in the hope that one day one investor will like you and take your product. But nothing of that sort is happening. Only your friends and family are enjoying. I mean, it's enough. Let's say it's creating enough traffic for three VMs, three physical servers, but you don't have any return on your investment. But you might have already spent some 10, 15 lakhs, or maybe 10 lakhs on all these things without any return. Okay, so fast forward to anywhere after 2010. Okay, you have a concept, you want to create an application, you already tested it in on your local machine, on your laptop, and you showed it to your friends. Hey, see, I can host this application, it could be running on mobile as well as browser or web also. So what do you think? What do you think about this application? So they say, yeah, it sounds pretty good. uh, why don't you host it? Why don't you make it public? So then you go on to Azure or AWS or GCP and take a subscription. Okay, so you take a subscription, meaning create an account there, and just create a few VMs, virtual machines. Sorry, and maybe these are very basic size, like 4 GB and 16 GB, 8 GB, and 4 cores of RAM. So you start installing your application, and you have a free, I mean, not free, but paid load balancer Azure. These are virtual. You're not buying anything. You just go to Azure portal, click on few things. You can rent these resources. Okay, and you start deploying your application on these things. Okay, so let's say after 10 days the load increases. Okay, so what you can do is you can increase one more VM, virtual machine. Okay, good. Okay, so then you will start modernizing this application, have a separate database. Okay, um, you want to add a new database, very nice. You can use Azure SQL Server or Azure SQL, MySQL for Azure, whatever it is. Okay, you create a MySQL server on Azure Cloud itself. It's also something like virtual machine only, but you don't have to manage the operating system and all. We'll talk about this. Okay, and these things are happening, and now a lot of more interest is generated. So you could use auto scaling capabilities available within Azure. What is auto scaling? Whenever there is a high increase in load, uh, whenever there is a high increase in load, your machines will automatically increase as per the required load. Maybe you put a VMSS in the front end, then you put some application layer. You're growing your application. Okay, so and remember, all these things you haven't paid anything upfront. In the beginning itself, you haven't paid anything. Okay, as you start using new resources, you'll pay for those new resources. For example, let's say for the first 3 months you used only these 3 VMs, then you'll pay only for these 3 VMs. Maybe each of them will cost you around, let's say, 5,000 rupees per month. So for the first 3 months you're only paying 15,000, 15,000, 15,000. Okay, and then when you added this, maybe it costs you additional 5,000 or 3,000, the MySQL box. Okay, so on and so forth, right? So that's what I mean by pay as you go. So you don't have to pay anything upfront. You need not say that, okay, I'm buying I want so many VMs. You don't even know how many VMs you need, right? Because the load might be quite dynamic. It could be a fail, or you know um, hit, you don't know. So this is how you can use cloud today. You can go onto an Azure onto a website like Azure portal or AWS and click on few things, and you will have a server running on the cloud. In the sense, it's running see, when I'm saying virtual machine, it doesn't mean it is there in the air. It is there somewhere, but where is that somewhere? You need not worry about it. Okay, but you can pick a location. You can say, okay, my customers are Indian customers, so I want to create my systems within India only. So you can choose those locations on cloud provider. For us, it's a virtual machine which can be accessed from your own laptop itself. Okay, it's as if it's there in your home, but it is there in some data center managed by Azure in India, maybe somewhere in Hyderabad, maybe somewhere in Mumbai, we don't know. I mean, Azure specifically doesn't announce where it is. It says South India, and it says Central India, West India. It doesn't say where exactly is the location. Whereas AWS says you have a data center in Mumbai, another one is coming in Hyderabad. You might have heard about it. That's one of the biggest investments for Hyderabad right now. Amazon is building a big data center in Hyderabad. So these machines, which for us are virtual, but must run on some physical servers somewhere, but these servers are managed by who? These servers are managed by who manages these servers? The physical servers on which your virtual machine is running.
The cloud provider, be
The
it
cloud
Azure
provider.
or Azure AWS. Yeah, cloud provider.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the cloud provider manages the physical servers, but we can using the APIs as someone has suggested. So when you make a call from your website, obviously it's going to make an API call, go to Azure infrastructure or AWS infrastructure, and creates a portion of, I mean, using their portion of physical resources, it creates a VM. Okay. It's not just storage. Cloud consists of three parts, not parts. So it is compute, network, and storage. Okay, it's not just storage, folks. It has compute, meaning your CPUs and RAMs and the motherboards, everything, networking, the routers, switches, configuration, everything. Okay, so compute, network, storage is what forms any physical data center, including your on-premise data centers. Okay, so this can be applied to a large corporation as well, not only a startup or a someone like an individual developer. Okay, so large corporations have to maintain a lot of data centers to run their applications, or one big data center to maintain their applications. Okay, and again the same questions of flexibility and all these things come into picture. Flipkart, okay, Flipkart has started as a very small computer, right? A small organization, not computer, sorry. Flipkart has started as a very small organization. Today it is one of the very big companies within Indian market, correct? So do you think they have built a big data center where they run all the all their applications? No, they're using AWS, right? Netflix serves thousands of customers around the globe. Okay, at least a million customers maybe, or even more. No, million is a small number. It should be more than that. So Netflix doesn't have its own data center. When I say data center, it doesn't have a location where they put all the servers where they store the data or movies and everything. They use AWS or some other cloud. Okay, understood what a cloud is? So important thing to understand is it's on demand. Like, again, take going back to the previous example. Let's say you we're talking pre-cloud scenario, or you don't want to use cloud, you want to set up on your own. So think about that scenario. Let's say your load has increased. I mean, your application is doing quite well, and summer holidays are coming. I know these days your biggest customers for your applications, mobile apps, or particularly gaming apps, or any kind of social media apps, the base customer is the teens and young adults, right? You know how India is spending money on these firefight and other PUBG is gone now, but there are other apps which Indian youth is spending a lot of money on. I don't know how they're getting it, but they're spending it on. So there are upcoming summer holidays for your you know all the intermediate colleges, graduation or BTech colleges and everything. So they will be load. So you need additional systems. Um, you want to use a marketing team to publicize your application, your game. Maybe you created a game, so you want a marketing, you hired a marketing expert who will create ads for your application, and there will be more load. So the marketing team says, be ready, we are going to get a lot of load. So then what you need to do in the earlier setup is you need to buy more machines and keep them configured and ready and all that. But somehow, let's say, some other player comes with a better game, and people are hooked onto that game, and no one is looking into this. So these two resources are waste. And even if your game is hit, and but this additional load will be there only throughout the summer. Afterwards, it's gone. You know that as well. But if in the absence of cloud, what you need to do is uh, you need to still shell a lot of amount and buy all these machines, and afterwards power off them and keep it in a side. But even if you power off them and keep it aside, that's not enough. Time and again you have to maintain them, because the security updates and everything have to be installed time and again. Okay, so this is additional maintenance. You need additional storage. Okay, so think about it. In cloud, let's say there will be demand. There will be demand only for a few days. So what you can do is you can create as many VMs as you want, okay, for a fixed amount of time. And you know VMs, or even one big physical machine, and start using it for how many hour time you want to use. And maybe once you maybe also scale up your databases. Then your what do you call, the load peak season is over, you're back to normal. Then you can simply maybe um, store them in some kind of storage, maybe on Azure cloud or AWS cloud, doesn't matter. You can store any logs or anything that needs to be stored in a storage, and remove all the additional computers you have created for the additional load. You can go back to, or maybe there will be some increase in the load from the earlier time, so you can still continue with how many ever number of machines you need. Okay, so this is what I called as pay as you go. So you will pay only for the amount of time you're spending on those resources. You're using these for 2 months, you'll pay only for 2 months. You're using it for 10 months, You're using it for 10 months, you'll pay for 10 months. Okay. If you're using 3 machines for 3 months, you pay for 3 machines only. For the next 10 months, you're using 10 machines, you'll pay for those 10 months for those 10 machines. Okay. So that's what we call it as pay as you go. So a rough analogy would be, think about the situation before Ola and Uber came, right? If you have to go to airport, yeah, so the on demand part is also very important. So if you want a new computer, in case of the older system, like this system, you have to first place an order with Dell. Dell will say, okay, we'll ship this by next month. Then you'll say, no, 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 I need something by next week because I'm anticipating new users or more traffic. So Dell says, the best we can try is 2 weeks. Okay. So you have to wait 2 months. It comes to your home. You plug it into your monitor. You configure the routing and wires, cables, everything, and install the hypervisor or whatever software you want to install. And on top of it, you create virtual machines and run your software. By the time, maybe summer holidays itself are over. Okay. But whereas in cloud, it's a matter of minutes or seconds rather to build your new infrastructure. Okay. It's very faster. So that's what we call as on-demand availability. So think about it, in the earlier times when you have to book a cab, you have to, call someone like Z cabs or dot cabs and say, hello sir, tomorrow morning I need a cab at 10 a.m. Then the typical response that you would get is, sir, 10 a.m. no cab, sir. You will either get it at 12 a.m. or 8 a.m. Okay. Then again you call someone else like Z cab or mm, you know Meru cabs, and they might also say something similar. So you'll say, whatever, get a cab at 8 o'clock. I'll go to airport and sleep there till 2 o'clock. Okay. So that was the time. Now, just before a few minutes of you want to getting out of your door, you can open your Ola or Uber app and book a cab. Okay. It's a different matter that most of the drivers reject your trips, but generally saying that, it's the concept is the similar one, right? So on-demand availability is not having to wait for a long time or not having to talk to anyone. No intermediaries. You need not send an email to ask for a new VM. You just log into the portal, boom, you create it, and forget about it. No intermediary. You need not talk to a customer service person. Nothing of that sort. Okay, all self-service. Okay, I think I talked a lot about cloud. Any questions? Okay, there are different types of cloud services which I will cover later. Just in the demo, I need not cover everything. Like we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Okay, so based on the operational difficulty and the freedom you want, you have three different kinds of services. Okay, within the cloud, so we are already using some of these services. Trust me. Example, you might all be using Gmail or Google Drive, right? So it's actually software as a service, meaning you're not running any code, you're not running any applications, but you're still using Gmail software. Okay, it's on cloud, you're not maintaining the software anywhere. Platform as a service is where you are a developer, you know how to write code, you know how to build an application, but you don't want to maintain the um, infrastructure. You don't want to maintain the virtual machines. You don't want to maintain the um, routers and load balancers and all these things. So there are services within public cloud which allow you to directly plug in your code, or I mean to say, upload your code onto their platform, and they will run those applications for you. Okay, that's platform as a service. Infrastructure as, can you hear me?
Y-
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so infrastructure as a service is what we talked about so far: hiring virtual machines, storage disks, load balancers. All these things are infrastructure as a service. Okay. All right. Now coming back to uh, Azure. What is Azure and why are we learning it? So Azure is Microsoft's cloud offering. So honestly, the public cloud that we know today has been initiated or has been started by AWS in 2006. Even before that, we had providers like Heroku and Rackspace. Okay, so these were like mostly like VPS, meaning they will give you a physical server, but it is hosted on their data center. Okay, So if you ask them for a cloud VM, they will give you a VM, but it is not as advanced as today's public cloud. It's like you still talk to I mean, it's like Zcaps and Meru caps. It's better than going into a taxi stand and asking for a taxi, but they still have the old problems, like, okay, you will give a VM and you have to maintain it and all that stuff. But in today's public cloud is quite different from what we had before 2006. Okay, before 2006 it's like you're maintaining your servers, but only difference is the server is located in somewhere in um, different data center. Okay, Heroku, Rackspace, and all these things were doing these things, but not as mature as today. So cloud has begun in 2000. The public cloud, as we know today, has begun in 2006 with Amazon Web Services. Later, Microsoft has joined the bandwagon because it knows the market, the future is on cloud, and it started in 2010 actually. Okay, so it is one of the leading cloud providers, only behind AWS in market share and service offerings. Okay, so in the amount of services offered, in the amount of market share, Azure comes second after Microsoft. Okay, so Azure's infrastructure is spread across the globe in 160 plus physical data centers in multiple regions. It has its physical data centers in multiple regions. See, as I said, if you're creating some resource on Azure, what you're actually doing is taking a portion of a physical server somewhere or a physical hard drive somewhere. Okay, so they have to maintain these physical data centers, and Azure's offer services across multiple areas like virtual machines, storage, machine learning, IoT, big data, and security, and many more. So when we talk about cloud, it's not just virtual machines and hard drives and load balancers. There are a lot of other services where you can use Internet of Things and big data and security and many more services. Okay, um, and one more thing to remember is the scalability of cloud. Okay, the reason we call it as cloud is it's almost like invisible, or as far as you can see, it's there. And second thing is the scalability is, at least in theoretical, unlimited. Of course everything has a limit, but it's as if you can create as many number of resources as you want. And also, the instant scalability is another big USP. When I say instant scalability, what I mean is, again, the same concept I gave you, right? So um, let's say every Monday, let's say you are Flipkart or some other e-retail shop. Every Monday, let's say you have to run some analytics, or every Sunday you have to run some big data analytics to understand your user pattern. Okay, to understand what products your users are interested in, or what patterns you observe, like at which time, um, and uh, at which time, and what time of the month. For example, are they spending more on the payday, or they're spending more on credit cards on before end of the month because they're stressed about not having money and using credit cards. So you have to do a lot of calculations. For suppose, for that, let's say you need a very high end machine, one machine with a very high powerful configuration, like you know 64 CPUs and 1 terabyte of RAM. Imagine buying such a big system, okay, and keeping it in your data center only to run once in a week. Okay, only to run once in a week. Imagine about that situation. That would be terrible, right? I mean, you have to maintain such a big system only which you run once in a week. But in cloud, that's quite possible. You can create that system only for that 1 hour in cloud and then destroy it and forget about it. Of course, you can still save that output somewhere. That's a different matter. But that instant scalability and the almost like unlimited, what do you call, unlimited expandability is one of the USPs of cloud. Okay, so as I said, these are some of the services from Azure. So Azure's infrastructure, this is where, I mean, this is little outdated, maybe by 4 months or 5 months. There might have been new regions. But look at this one. These are various places in the globe where, or in the on the earth, where Azure has a physical data center. Okay, so primarily located in US and Europe, obvious for obvious reasons. The regions are located in US and Europe, and you have good presence in China as well as APAC, Asia Pacific region. and it has three regions as well because it knows India is also a good market for cloud: West India, Central India, and South India, three regions. And you have it in very little presence in Africa and South America, nothing surprising there. So these are where Azure hosts their physical data centers. Okay, questions? And by the way, if you're in India but you want to create an application for the US citizens, okay, provided you have a registered organization and whatever it is, so you need not really sit in US to create infrastructure for US. Okay, you can sit in India and create infrastructure for US people from here. Absolutely um, possible. Okay, or you know, of course, we've been doing that even before cloud. Like for example, we have been supporting other companies which are in US and Europe, right? For example, Citibank, JPMC. Talk about any big Nokia mobiles. We've been doing that support from here. Internet has made it easy. But even today, um, if you want to start a new startup for US citizens, you can sit in India and do that by creating your applications in US region. Okay. All right. So that's the part about cloud and Azure in specific. Okay. And I had one slide which I did not, I'm not sure why it is missing in this presentation. But um, in terms of cloud presence, AWS is the leader, obviously, because they are the beginners, they are the pioneers. They began in 2006. So AWS is the biggest leader in the market, closely followed by Azure. And another important thing about Azure is growing faster than AWS because AWS has reached that saturation. Now, more and more enterprises. So AWS has all kind of customers, primarily startups and medium and large scale enterprises, everything. But more and more traditional industries like banking and other industries are looking, which are already hardly, or rather closely aligned with Microsoft partnership in terms of using their Office suite or their products, are now looking to Azure, migration to Azure. Okay, so and there are very less number of people who have been trained on Azure, so the demand is high for folks with Azure knowledge. Yeah, take my word for that. I've seen a lot of job requirements within my organization and other organizations as well. So Azure is definitely in demand, or people with Azure skills are definitely in demand in market today. Okay, and we have Google Cloud Platform at third position, but it is very, very, I mean, in terms of market share, it is quite distant from um, Azure. Okay, so before I go to DevOps, any questions on cloud or Azure?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. So DevOps, what is DevOps all about? Okay, so you might have been hearing this term a lot. What is DevOps, DevOps, and DevOps? Okay, so what do you think DevOps is?
Development and operations.
Development and operations? Okay,
Continuous monitoring, continuous deployment.
It's a
continuous
collection of
monitoring,
tools.
collection of tools. Anything else?
It has been continuous monitoring and continuous deployment.
Continuous monitoring and continuous deployment. Okay, okay. Let's see what it is. What happened? Okay, sorry. So DevOps is a set of software development practices that combine software development and IT operations to shorten the systems development lifecycle while delivering features, fixes, and updates frequently in close alignment with business objectives. I know this is a long definition, but in simple words, it's about bringing new practices that bring the development team and operations team closer, I mean, to work closely. And what is the objective? To deliver your updates faster. Not only updates, there could be fixes, bug fixes. You might notice a bug in your application that has to be fixed in and updates frequently in close alignment with business objectives. What is, I mean, you might be creating a lot of new features, but are they in line with your business objectives? What is a business objective? A business objective could be something like increase engagement rate within my customers. I want more customers to spend time on my app, or increase more margins, like I want to promote products which have high margin rather than what is useful for customers. That's what happening these days, right? If you go to Flipkart or Amazon, our choices are limited by their algorithms. They notice that, okay, this product is selling better and this product has better margin, so let's push this one. Even in a supermarket, if you notice, right, they will put different products in different locations, but they put products which they have higher margin. Let's say Procter and Gamble is giving them higher margin than some other company. They put Procter and Gamble products at the beginning itself or highlighted everywhere. Okay, that's an unfortunate fact. So does this thing happen on Amazon and Flipkart also, right? If you go to Amazon and Flipkart and look for a laptop, they'll suggest something that is not more suitable for you. Maybe they already know what you are searching for online, but still they're going to suggest something which is of higher profit for you. Anyway, I'm going on the political route, but what I mean to say is it's all about the DevOps is all about shortening the systems development lifecycle, meaning from the time you plan something to the time you actually take it to the market or make it available for the public. That is what as DevOps is all about. Okay, to shorten this systems development lifecycle. Okay, what will it do? It will deliver fixes and features and faster. Okay, it's not only about creating application. Once you create the application, you will need to constantly make changes. Think about WhatsApp, right? When WhatsApp started, did it have a video calling feature? Did when it started in around 2011 or 2012, did it have a calling feature? At least calling is
No.
also not there. It did
Yes.
not have voice messages. It did not have status, right? Even group messaging was not there, if you remember correctly, in the initial days. Okay, so that's part of your agile methodology as well. What agile methodology teaches is take your product to the market and do incremental updates, meaning keep on adding new updates very frequently. That DevOps and agile work closely. Okay, so before let's think in this scenario. Okay, so let's say WhatsApp had this beautiful idea about personal messaging chat, but they thought, okay, we need to wait till all the features such as video calling, um, you know uh, status and everything is ready, then we will release our product. So then what would have happened? Instead of releasing in 2012, they might have released the product somewhere in 2017 or 2018. Then imagine how they would be crushed by the competition. By the time Telegram, Hike, and whatever other app, WeChat, whatever other apps have come, they might have taken over WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp would not have been a leader. So the first thing Agile suggests is, if you have a minimum viable product, a product which you think customers are interested, take it to the market. Then keep on making newer updates. Okay, if you have noticed WhatsApp's journey, I mean, I'm giving WhatsApp as an example because we all use it and we all know, how it has evolved over the period of time. So you keep seeing new updates every day, and now they are into WhatsApp payments, WhatsApp business, right? So WhatsApp has started as a free tool. Now they have a revenue model. They have what do you call they are starting into this payments business, because that's what the next big thing is all about, right? They're selling our data to um, big businesses now. They might not say they are not selling, but yeah. So yeah, coming back to DevOps again, it's all about incrementally making changes. So how fast you can take these changes to the market? If you slow down on these changes, if you don't fix a bug that is there in your video calling. For example, let's say there is a bug in your video calling. When you're calling more than 3 people, let's say the video blanks out. Okay, you announce that the video calling is for 8 people, but let's say when more than 3 people are added to the call, your video goes blank. Then that's a bug. What is a bug? An issue with your code. So then what is important is fixing the bug very quickly. Okay, so that's, otherwise people will move to some other app like Zoom. Okay, so that's where DevOps comes into picture. So it the objective is all about shortening the systems development lifecycle. Okay, not only to release the product, but the features, the bugs, okay, security updates, all these things have to be done faster. So DevOps is that set of practices which helps businesses to close these things faster or take the new products, new changes to market faster. Make sense? Okay, So someone has said it's also a set of tools. So we'll talk about that as well. So in simpler words, it's combination of your dev, QA and operations teams. That doesn't mean development team also does QA or operations, or that doesn't mean ops team also does QA and development. Yes, there are organizations like Google where the developers also work on operations team also work on development, but we're not talking about those organizations, right? That's a specific exception.
Sir, one doubt.
Yes, please go on.
Sir, what is difference between Agile methodology and DevOps tools, sir?
So agile is again DevOps is a culture, agile is a methodology. So agile suggests you to do your software development in a certain way. So as I said, there are some principles in agile. It says start your product early. Don't wait till it is the best product in the market. Whatever the minimum features you have, if it is working, bring it to the market and keep on continuously making changes. Okay, so it's a software development approach. Whereas DevOps is a culture uh, or a practice or a set of practices that have to be followed by entire organization. Okay, in terms of what DevOps says is okay, you have a plan to launch a product. So from day zero, that means the first day itself, bring in your development team, operations team, and everyone together and plan together. Okay, and the main emphasis is on breaking the silos or breaking these barriers. Earlier what would happen, development team was developing some applications and operations team would not know about it. They would know only like 10 days before the release, and then operations team is running helter skelter to understand uh, what's happening. Okay,
Okay, sir. Okay.
so that was before the DevOps. Now DevOps mandates that okay, you have to run these applications. Sorry, you have to inform your teams much earlier. Not inform, in fact, plan together with all these teams. Okay, plan together with all these teams so that you could achieve these things I talked about, shortening. One second, please. One second. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Kiran.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So these two things work in close alignment. It's not like these two are separate processes. But again, as I said, one is a methodology, one is a set of cultural practices you bring within organization. Okay. So if you look at DevOps in a detailed way, what is it and what it's not? So it is a culture that aims to create better coordination between development, QA, and operations team. It's definitely not a single technology or a tool. It's not like you're learning Java or Python or some VMware or Azure Cloud. It's not a single tool or a technology. Okay, that's where the complexity also lies. What is the main objective? As I told, the aim of adopting DevOps culture is to build and release software quickly. And not only that, you released your software to the market, but it has to be highly available, meaning it should never go down or the service should never be down, like your WhatsApp or Gmail. Okay, I mean those are ideal things, but even if it's a small applications, you have to make sure it 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 is very highly available and resilient. Resilient is like there are always failures in some part or the other part. Even if there is a failure, your system should recover from the failure faster. That's what resilient means. So ideally DevOps is all about this culture, but in implementation, when it that is the theory, but when it comes to practice, DevOps has become about a set of skills and set of tools, right? So There are some roles very similar to DevOps, which are called as site reliability engineer and also cloud ops. These are very close to DevOps roles. So ideally, what Google says is Google has a book called as Site Reliability Engineering. What Google says is DevOps is a culture that should be followed by everyone within your organizations, from the project management teams to development teams to operations team to everyone. But SRE team is the team which will drive this change. The site reliability engineering team is the team that drives these changes, that gives the automation. But in real world, in other organizations, that is not going to happen. That's not what happens is, okay, you have SRE engineers who needs to take care of your applications in one way, and development team which will be responsible to work with development team and help them to create their software faster and create the base infrastructure and all these things. Okay, and there are also some roles which are very similar to DevOps called as cloud ops. Maybe these people are mostly focused on automation on cloud and all that. Okay, so if you look at the software development lifecycle, there are several phases: build, design, plan, design, build, test, release, and maintain. These are the various cycles. But I have condensed this as per the DevOps requirement and see what happens. So first thing you need to run your applications is some infrastructure, right? So from the build aspect, I'm not talking about planning and all these things which will be coming under project management purview. So for building, we need to use some DevOps. Okay, so I talked about DevOps being this practice and all that, but in reality, in practice, DevOps is all about understanding how these things interoperate with each other, how these various phases work together, and where you can pitch in, or where you can automate things, where you can increase the velocity of the deployments. Okay, so if you look at the life cycle from the DevOps perspective, the first step I would say is building your infrastructure. Okay, so for this, we need to learn a certain tool, certain way to automate it. That's in our case. Then next comes the configuration. So you have infrastructure, that is your VMs and everything is created. Let's say we are using on cloud, so the infrastructure is ready. But next, you have to make these infrastructure ready for the applications to be deployed. Then you actually deploy these applications using this paradigm called as CI and CD, using this practice of continuous integration and continuous delivery. Someone is talking about continuous deployment or continuous delivery. So using this CI CD, you will deploy your application onto your infrastructure which is already configured. And then of course, you'll have to set up the monitoring and also alerting. So monitoring is to monitor if your systems are working well or not. Alerting is to send you a notification whenever there is some failure in the system. Okay, and finally, all these things have to be managed with a or when your developer is building a code or you are writing some automation, all this is in the form of a code. So you need to have source code management tools as well. Okay, like Git and GitHub. So you have to understand how to maintain your source code. Okay, source code is nothing but just your application code or your automation code, whatever you're writing. And so what are we going to do in our course is, for each of these steps, for each of these methodologies, we are going to learn a tool. For example, for building infrastructure, we are going to learn Terraform. So how to create 10 VMs on Azure through automation, we learn it through Terraform. Then how to configure these 10 machines. Let's say within these 10 machines, 5 machines should run Java application, 5 machines should run MySQL database. So how do we configure that through automation? Ansible. Okay, and how do you deploy your application on top of this? We'll learn Azure Devops. Okay, now comes Azure Devops, which is another offering by Microsoft, but it is like a one tool which combines multiple features. Okay, it's like your Azure cloud but different from your Azure cloud. It's Azure DevOps. Okay, earlier it was called as TFS or Team Foundation Services, and later it was called as VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services. But Microsoft has this habit of confusing people, so that's why they put this name as Azure DevOps, whereas it's simply a CI/CD server with some additional features. Okay, then regarding the monitoring and alerting, we will understand how Azure Monitor works. Okay, and by the way, for source code management, how do you uh, track your changes in the source code and how do you upload to the GitHub? All these things we will learn with I'll teach you about Git software and how to use GitHub. Of course, we'll use a combination of GitHub as well as Azure DevOps. I'll talk how to create resources in how to create repositories in Azure DevOps as well, because Azure DevOps can also act like a source code repository, meaning it can act like GitHub as well. And then you have your operating. So right, you're building your systems and you're building up, you're deploying applications and all these things. But where do you do all these things? On a on a specific or on a set of VMs, right? Virtual machines, or a so what we call as servers. Those servers run an operating system, right? So most of the operating system or machines on cloud run Linux operating system. Okay, 80% of web, or rather not 80%, let's say 70% of the web runs on Linux VMs only. So we'll focus on Linux operating system, right? And yeah, there are other parts which I did not include. For example, Docker, which will be part of your infrastructure automation only. Not infrastructure automation, but you could say it's part of your CI/CD and software and infrastructure and CI/CD coming together. There is Kubernetes also as part of this course, which I did not include this diagram. But we learn all these things. And even before that, I'll start with very fundamental things like what is a virtual machine, what is the networking, or what is a virtual network, what is a physical network. Okay, how do you how does communication happen between these systems, and all these things I talk in the first week. Okay, but to give you from the DevOps perspective how this course is going to benefit you, these are the things we are going to learn. And one thing, I know you might have a lot of questions. There are not only these tools, there are many other tools in the market. For example, instead of Terraform, you could use something like ARM templates, which is given by Azure. Or instead of Ansible, you could use something like SaltStack or Puppet or Chef. Okay. Instead of Azure DevOps, there is GitHub Actions, GitLab, and a lot of other things. But why did I choose these things? Why did we choose these things for the course? Because these are in demand. So if you go to LinkedIn and look for any of the job references, you will find, okay, you will find at least 3 to 4 of these things coming up. Even if it's not Azure, of course, all these things we are going to practice on Azure only, right? When you are learning Ansible, it's not like you have to um, you know get a new laptop to practice this. You will practice on Azure cloud only. Of course, you need a laptop to practice that. And you see any job description for DevOps or cloud ops or anything that like that, they will definitely require you to have good knowledge of Linux administration, and combination of Ansible, Terraform, or uh, some kind of CI/CD tools. CI/CD tools are many. Not You have Jenkins, you have Azure DevOps, you have GitLab, you have GitHub Actions. But these days, because you're learning Azure with Azure DevOps will add you additional uh, value. Will give you additional value. And yeah, Git is like very mandatory. How you have to understand Git. Um, to an extent. And monitoring also, again, it's a large landscape. You have a lot of applications, a lot of tools, uh, but again, we cannot cover all of these things. So what is more relevant to us in terms of Azure Monitor? So that's why I put it here. Okay, and we are going to learn Docker and Kubernetes, and also we're going to learn Linux shell scripting.
Jenkins
So
also.
no, because we are learning
Jenkins
Azure
also.
DevOps. No,
Okay.
because we are
Jenkins.
learning Azure DevOps, we are not covering Jenkins.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jenkins is totally outdated, folks. Like, very fewer organizations are using. There is a product called as CloudBees. Uh, there is a product called as CloudBees, which is also an offering by Jenkins. But I would say Jenkins is being replaced with something like GitHub Actions or GitLab CI or Azure DevOps. Yeah, but as I said again, I cannot cover all the tools. I choose the most relevant for this course, and what are in demand in market. So we could, I would not say Jenkins is bad. That's why I'm not teaching Jenkins. But why not GitLab CI then, right? Why not GitHub Actions? There are a lot of options I can teach. But as I said, when you're working in an organization which has an Azure subscription, they might as well have a Azure DevOps. They both go hand in hand, because they're from the same organizations, right? So yeah, there is a reason to choose this tool set. And there are other tools in terms of, like, instead of Terraform, why not we learn Pulumi, right, which is in market these days. Or but it's in demand. Terraform is in demand. Okay. Okay, so if we go to the detailed curriculum of each of these applications or each of these technologies we are going to learn, so this is the one. This is part one of our curriculum. So operating system wise, we learn Linux, GNU Linux, and we understand how the file system works, how the navigation works, how do you edit files, because it's a command line interface which we are going to learn. Okay, I mean Linux is not only about command line. You have a, I am running a, I mean whatever you're seeing right now is from a Linux machine. That's a different matter. But when you work it on a VM, it will not have any graphical user interface like a Windows VM. It will have only command line. So uh, you have to understand these parts. How do you navigate within the file system? How do you edit files? How do you install software? How do you manage processes and services? All these things we're going to learn. From the cloud perspective, as I said, Azure Cloud has a lot of services, IoT, big data, and all these things. But we are learning the services which are more relevant to the DevOps roles, like how do you manage the Azure accounts, like how do you create subscriptions, the access control, IAM, resource groups, VNets, VM, storage, DNS, Azure CLI. Even I'll talk about Azure SQL services. Okay, so these are the services we're going to talk in Azure. And mind you, these are all very high level topics. Each of these topics will go very deep. Okay, and from the scripting perspective, we'll learn about we learn Linux shell scripting or Bash shell scripting. So we'll understand about the structure of a Linux shell scripting, the conditionals, loops, variables, and arguments. It's like a mini programming tutorial of 2 to 3 days. Okay, then infrastructure as code. So building infrastructure through code, we will learn Terraform. Okay, installation and configuration, creation, updating infrastructure on Azure. Don't worry, you might see this term scripting and coding. Don't think that there will be a lot of coding and all. Yes, there will be coding, there will be a lot of typing, but it's not like you're creating something out of scratch. It's not your programming. You just need to use the available documentation, available templates to fit it to your own requirement. Yes, it's not more clicks, it's more typing in DevOps always, because you like it or not, everyone should learn automation if you want to build a career in the IT industry. Okay, so there will be coding, but don't worry, it's not like you have to do a lot of programming and stuff like that. It's all configuration coding. Then you have source code management. We learn about Git and GitHub, how to install Git, how to configure it, what is tracking, versioning, branches, mergers, and GitHub repos, authentication, pull request, all these things we talk. Uh, then the software configuration management part, we learn about Ansible, okay, how to install, configure, and what are playbooks. All these things we'll learn. And within Azure DevOps, you'll learn about CI/CD, what is Azure DevOps, what are the agents, um, how do you integrate with your GitHub or other services, and what are various jobs, stages, pipelines, and all these part we'll cover in Azure DevOps. Then in containers, we'll talk about Docker, again, the installation and configuration, how to create containers, how to automate the creation of containers, and how to create Docker file. And I put Kubernetes in small letters because Kubernetes is again a very, very vast topic and very advanced topic. I'm going to cover Kubernetes in a couple of sessions, but it's going to be like Kubernetes 101, meaning very high level. I will show you how to create a Kubernetes cluster on Azure. I will show you how to log into Kubernetes cluster, how to create your application on Kubernetes. But Kubernetes is a very um, deep subject. So this is only going to be like high level overview. I'll talk about all the main components within Kubernetes, but it has a lot more than what I'm talking in this course. That's why I put it in small letters. Okay, so it's like your gateway to Kubernetes. But Docker, we're covering a lot of stuff, including the Docker file. And monitoring alerting, as I suggested, I'll talk about Azure Monitor as a tool, but before that, I'll give you a lot of overview about what actually monitoring means, what is incident management, what is uh, major incident response, and all these things we'll talk about in monitoring and alerting section. So there is a lot of theory as well. So yeah. Uh, so again, I'll keep these slides open for like next 10-20 seconds so that you could go through them. This is part one.
Kiran, I have one question, Kiran. Like, is it suitable for one who is I'm a mainframe developer? So, will this course suit for me? I mean, any prerequisites kind of thing we should
Yeah,
have
I'll
for
come to that. I'll come to that.
yeah.
So this is part one of the curriculum. Moving to part two. Again, As I said, this is very high level. Okay, each of these topics we'll dive deep into them. Okay, so now the prerequisites are what you need to join this course. Okay, you would definitely need a computer, laptop or desktop, doesn't matter. You know, even if it's an older machine, that's fine, because most of the things you're running on cloud. But I would say anywhere like a 4 GB computer with an i3 or a quad core would be much better. What are the subscriptions you need? You would need an Azure free tier subscription. That means you're not paying anything. But here's the challenge. Our course is going to go for at least 10 weeks, 2.5 months, right? Monday to Friday um is our course time. 1 hour every day, 1 hour 15 minutes, or 1 hour 10 minutes approximately. So after 1 month, your Azure subscription is going to be over. So you would need a new subscription. Of course, don't create any Azure subscription right now. Wait till I tell you, because the first week we don't need Azure subscription. So later, once you start learning your, once your first month is over, your Azure free subscription is over. That means you have to pay to use Azure services. Of course, you will pay the bill at the end of the month, but you might be restricted in some services. You need to give your credit card and also. And another thing is, even to create a free tier subscription, you would need a credit card. Okay, so if you don't have one, you will have to ask your friends or family to help you with that. But after 1 month, what do you do? So you have to either use pay as you go account, meaning you use the resources and pay at the end of the month, or ask some of your friends to create a second account for you. Okay, but not with your email address, not with your phone number, not with your credit card. Because I've seen with a lot of students, earlier what used to happen is, we can create we used to be able to create multiple accounts from the same IP address, but now they somehow have your information. And if you're trying to create a second free account with a different email address, different phone number, and different credit card also, the account is getting blocked. It gets created, but you're not able to use it. So what is the best way is, for example, you can ask your brothers or sisters, or someone else who is, or you can go to their home and create your free tier subscription for the second one after 1 month, from their location, so that it doesn't get blocked. But use different email address and different credit card. Okay, that's why I put that one prominently here. In case of AWS, that's not a problem. I teach AWS and Azure as well. In case of AWS, you have free subscription for one year. Okay, but here it's only 1 month. Um, then what are the other accounts you have to create? Like, you need GitHub, which is again totally free. Azure Devops is also for us. It's it offers the minimum requirement for you, which is like, you can create your required services without paying anything. It's free. Docker Hub, again free to learn Docker and push Docker images. Then if you want to understand how to create a domain name and how to map your IP address, you can create a free service called as Freenom, okay, which is a um, domain name service provider like your GoDaddy. Again, it will be free for 3 months, so you can create a fake website. Not fake website, some website with some name, okay, which is not very popular, like .com or .org, but some extension, you will get a free website. Okay, what are the softwares you need to install on your computer? You would need a software called as Git Bash, or Git software, which would allow you to not only learn Git, but also you can communicate, you can connect to these cloud VMs with Git Bash, which is much easier. Okay, you might do it from command prompt, but Windows is a, you know, if you have a MacBook or anything, Git will be there by default, or Linux machine. So you need a code editor, a notepad like thing, but it's much advanced like VS Code. It's good to have VS Code. And later, after learning Azure command line, you will have to install Azure CLI on your systems. Of course, you might also install Terraform and other stuff, but yeah, it's good to have system administrator rights in your laptop. That's why I put this thing here. Okay, so personally, what do you require? So someone has asked me this question already. So importantly, you need to have the appetite for learning, that hunger for learning, and quality time for classes and practice. So you could just wake up in the morning, or if it's in the if you're in the US, you could, after your work, you could just lie on your couch with an iPad or a mobile phone and watch my class. But that's not good enough. I would need you to log on to a laptop and, you know, I would appreciate if you log into a laptop, and I cannot say I would need you, and you know participate in the class, ask questions, and also whenever I ask to do something or test something quickly, to be able to do it rather than logging on an iPad and not able to do anything. Okay, our mobile devices are not up to that level. Unless you are an Iron Man, you still need a laptop to actively understand what we are discussing. Okay, skills. So I prepared this course in such a way that it is useful for absolute beginners. When I say beginners in IT industry, uh, and also someone who has already some knowledge like a QA or support, production support, or operations team, or absolutely no skills also, because we are starting from very very basic ground zero and upwards we build. Okay, so the first 1.5 weeks is going to be almost very theoretical. Okay, uh, because if you're new to if you're new to IT, you have to understand what happens in a traditional or in any IT organization. Okay, how the infrastructure works, what happens when you hit a web page, where does this request go? All these things I'm going to cover in the first 1.5 week, which is going to sound dull and boring, uh, but I mean, I'll try to make as interesting as possible. But the first 1.5 week is not about putting your hands on Azure or somewhere. It's only about basics. So that's why I say, skills wise, this is designed for anyone, um, even with someone who has no uh, prior experience in IT industry. Yes, we will do a coding. So if you know something like any kind of scripting, PowerShell scripting or Linux shell scripting, or what is that, Python, it's all an added advantage. But even if you don't have that, that's fine. Okay, we are going to cover some kind of scripting using Linux shell scripting, which will give you an idea of how the scripting or automation works. And yeah, we do a lot of typing, we do a lot of code compilation, creating code and all that, but it's not like programming. You don't have to imagine things and create. You just use the existing configuration and just tweak it to your liking. Just understand how these things work. Okay, so that's from the prerequisite courses. Okay, again, to talk about the course duration, it's about I would say 10 to 12 weeks, almost 3 months. But I try to complete it by 10 weeks. But obviously, there will be some gaps, some breaks given these times. You never know who in your family falls sick, or I might take some breaks here and there. So about 10 to 12 weeks is the course duration, roughly every day, 1 hour to 1 hour 10-15 minutes. Okay, and initially our course will be 8 to 9 from from Monday till Feb 10th, or around, for first 1.5 week. It's going to be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. IST. From there onwards, it will be 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. IST. This is because I have other commitments. Um, so yeah, I know it might not be very convenient for some of you, but please stick on for the first week and you will have a lot of fun. And all the classes will be recorded and will be available for you. Okay, so the first 1.5 week, it's going to be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. only for the first 1.5 week. Later, we are going to go back to 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. for the rest of the course. Okay, Monday through Friday, no classes on weekends, unless we are falling very behind our schedule. Sometimes I might schedule on weekends, but very rare. Okay, uh, so to sum it all up, before I take your questions, so again, like I said, this course is designed for freshers. When I say freshers, meaning not only freshers to industry, but freshers to IT as well. You might be working in some other different industry and you're planning to come back to industry. I mean, you're planning to come into the IT industry, or for those already working in IT, like people who are working in production support, QA, or even developers also can benefit from this. Okay, so this course covers a wide variety of processes and technologies. Again, DevOps itself is a wide and deep area. You need to know a lot of areas, and also you need to know depth in each of these areas. So we're going to cover both of these things in good measure. Um, this course aims to uh, equip you with the right amount of theoretical and practical knowledge of cloud, DevOps practices, and also tools. Okay, so it's not entirely theoretical. It's mostly practical. We'll do mostly hands-on only, but everywhere I talk about enough theoretical knowledge as well. Okay, I mean, enough theory as well about why we are using this, why should we do that. Okay, while this course offers a lot to learn and upskill, again, it's like my disclaimer, it is your enthusiasm to learn and practice that takes your career to the next level. Okay, so how you practice, how you use this course material I give, and how you come up with questions is what makes you to the next level. Okay, so I know you might have some questions, but before that, based on some of the questions I received in my previous demos or classes, I'll talk about some of the FAQ or frequently asked questions. Okay, do I support after your jobs, or do I support for interviews or create resumes and all that? No, absolutely no. I'm a trainer. I'm going to train you. I have real-time experience, so I can talk about real-time scenarios, what we do. Okay, is there going to be a real-time project? No, but all the tasks we are going to do are as real-time as possible. Okay, um, so no resumes. Interview questions, whenever we are discussing a topic, I'll talk about what could be the questions you could expect from this topic, but I don't have a structured interview set of questions, because I think that's not really intelligent to prepare a set of questions and go to an interview rather than understand the concepts, because the interview is going to be based on what you put in your resume, what you talk about your career, your experience so far. So if you say you have worked on so and so project in, so you might say I created the entire infrastructure using Terraform, and I maintained this using Azure Devops through CI/CD and all that. Then I'll ask, what did you exactly do with Terraform? Did you create the configuration, or did you use the configuration that someone else has created? So based on your response, I'll ask the questions accordingly. Okay, but every time we discuss a topic, I will touch upon the possible interview questions. Okay, but no set of interview questions. You can maintain a list of interview questions yourselves. You can interact with your friends and get more questions, but I can't give you resumes or interview questions and all that stuff. Okay, real-time project, as I told you, we have to learn all these as an individual bits. Okay, we cannot start with a project and fall flat on our face. We have to start dissecting everything at the basic level, from how to create a VM, how to create a load balancer, how to create a storage disk. Everything has to be done in a piecemeal, or small chunks of knowledge. And at the end, of course, we are going to integrate all these things. Our knowledge is going to be incremental. First, you learn basics about your infrastructure, then you're going to implement that, then you're going to automate this process, then you're going to combine all these things into a single mm, big thing. So no real-time project, but we are going to go as close as we do in real time. Okay, as I see how it's going in real time, I'll talk about all that. Okay. So some of the other questions might be, I might be experienced in IT but don't have DevOps. What do I do? Well, you could say that, again, based on how your relieving letter looks and all that, if you're confident enough, you can say that, okay, past 2.5 years or 3 years, I've been working in DevOps role in my current organization. These are my skill sets, and you could proceed with that. Okay, if you're a fresher, yes, it's very difficult to get into DevOps positions right away, but you have other roles like cloud ops engineering, where these skills will be very, very valuable. If you are a fresher and you say you have good knowledge on Azure, you are a hot cake. Okay, but again, how the off-campus recruitment happens, how that thing happens is a different thing. Another thing is, mm, what's the other thing I want to talk about? Uh, 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 mm, yeah, all right. So these are some of the questions I keep getting. So that's why I answered them. If you have any questions apart from these, please go ahead. Can you all still hear me?
Sir, which codings are available?
Sorry. I lost you. Can you repeat your question?
Which codings are, uh, is there, sir, in DevOps and Azure?
Which coding?
Which
Is that the
codings are
question?
involved,
Sorry.
sir, in this? Like Python or Java?
See,
Yes, sir, that one.
okay. See, there is nothing like, you know, this particular language you have to learn. We are not developers. We are going to be managing the infrastructure, we are going to manage the DevOps toolset. So like I said, we are going to learn Linux shell scripting or Bash scripting. Okay. And we are going to learn a bit about Azure CLI, which is again based on, I mean, which is a command line tool. So we're going to learn Ansible in YAML again, YAML, YAML, and we're going to learn a bit about Terraform code, which is in a different language. So these are all not programming languages; these are all configuration languages. Okay, so there will be coding, but it's not like Java or Python. Okay, we'll do the Linux shell scripting, which is universal again. We will do the Terraform code. We'll do the YAML or Ansible coding. These are all different kind of things. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, sir, but I see demo class in YouTube. It is involved some Python like that, basics we need.
See, if you know Python,
I see
it
the
would be
demo class
different.
in YouTube.
Okay, demo class for what?
Yeah, so which codings are involved in DevOps and Azure?
Yeah, see, if you know Python, that would be definitely great. But I have been working in DevOps, and I have seen a lot of members who might not know Python. Okay, I know a bit of Python, but I've hardly used Python. I mostly used shell scripting only. Okay, so if you know Python, some organizations might specifically need you to know Python, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And also understand this thing, right? So we are all, some of us might be starting from absolute scratch, so you don't have to worry about programming at this time. What you need to understand is understand all the concepts that I've discussed, or I said we are going to discuss. And if you get better at one program, Linux shell scripting at least, and I'm going to talk about the basic concepts of coding or programming, like variables, variable substitution, loops. So you can use the same concepts in Python later. First you focus on the DevOps tool sets, first you focus on cloud, first you focus on the infrastructure automation, configuration management, and later you can learn. Once you get into the IT industry, then you can start learning a new language. See, one thing is pretty sure, those people in Sri Chaitanya and Narayana have lied to us. They said once you complete your MSET, it's going to be all, you know, honky dory, everything is going to be great. No, they lied. The real learning comes now. So even if you have, even if you are experienced DevOps engineer or a experienced DevOps manager, the learning will be continuous. You have to learn every day. Okay. I mean that applies to any of the other industries as well, but here it's more dynamic and more fast paced. Every day something kind of new technology comes, you have to learn and get yourself updated. Okay, again it depends, right? Some organizations are like, if you're working in a consulting organizations, you're serving multiple clients, then you might have to be up to date with different technologies. For example, I worked mostly on Terraform all through my career, but in a few months ago, I worked for a client. That client doesn't want to use Terraform. So I had to work on ARM templates or Azure Resource Manager templates. Hmm, It depends again. All right. Any other questions?
Kiran, one question like how about any certifications after this course? I mean, what kind of certifications we can
Oh, yeah,
make?
yeah. Good question. Yeah, yeah. That's the one thing I was about to talk. Then it skipped mine. Right. See, certifications. Again, as I said, DevOps is a wide area, right? You have certifications in cloud, you have certifications in tool wise, you have a Docker certification, you have Terraform certification, you have Ansible certification. So don't be worried about certifications right now. There are a lot of certifications, but if you are going with someone as a 2 to 3 years of experience, you could focus on something known as Azure 900, which is a fundamentals certifications. Pretty much easy. You just need to understand various services that are available in Azure. But our course is more aligned towards DevOps toolset as a whole. So we are not entirely focusing on one kind of certification. But after this course is over, after you practice all the concepts, you could take some time like 10-15 days and read the material available online about Azure 900. There are a lot of YouTube videos as well. You can follow them, especially to understand the various Azure services, and you can give the AZ 900 to begin with. Okay, so that's your starting certification that you can target. But again, I'm telling it very honestly, this course is not tailored to give you training to achieve certification, because we are covering a lot of areas. Okay, we are touching different areas and how these areas interact with each other. So this is not suited for a certification. You have to put your effort for at least 10-15 days to crack a certification like AZ 900. But if you get more comfortable, if you are more confident in Azure, you learn about the storage services, the IAM in depth, then you can go for something like AZ104. It's a very complex certification. I did it sometime last year after so many years of working, but it's still, I felt it is still complex. AZ104. Then you can go for AZ303 for an Azure architecture. But I would say you can aim at these certifications once you have the real-time experience. It will become easier. Okay. But immediately after the course, take some 10-15 days, go through some trainings available on Microsoft portal, Microsoft websites, and you should be able to clear AZ 900, the Azure Fundamentals Examination.
Okay. Okay, Kiran.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Certifications are a good thing, but you know, even if you have a certification, you have to answer your interviews. The more number of certifications you put in the interview in the resume, the more tough your questions are going to be. Okay.
Yeah, at
Honestly,
least
yeah.
at least to get calls at least.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I understand that part. But I think the recruiters are not specifically looking for certifications. But another challenge you rightly pointed out about clearing the first filtration, right? The resume filtering. So again, keep in mind, a lot of people put all these keywords which we are discussing in this one, but you have to have good amount of practice. And see, you're saying that you have worked for at least 2 to 3 years as a DevOps engineer, so you have to justify to that. Okay, how do you justify to that? By practicing. So practice as if you are in an organization. So think of it like, after joining the course, think of consider yourself to be employed in two jobs. One job is your regular job you're doing today. The second job is your preparation for the future. Okay, so spend 2 to 3 hours apart from my class, at least 2 hours apart from my class, and practice all these concepts and get better. Okay, only then you'll succeed. Okay, so the more you practice, the more issues you'll run into. The more issues you'll run into, the more you learn. Trust me.
Yeah, correct. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kiran.
And again, as I said, a lot of people ask me, do we have real-time projects? Do we have real-time projects? Forget about real-time projects. Even if I give real-time tasks, project is a big thing. Project will be done by 5-10 people, 5 people in a DevOps team. Even if I give simple tasks like, okay, today we have learned Terraform, so tomorrow use Terraform to create something, people will not do that. People won't do that in my courses. I know we are all busy with our day jobs, but if you're spending some amount of money on my course, if you're spending some amount of time to attend my classes, follow up with the practice, right? Just don't leave it at that stage. That's my request.
Okay.
Yeah, for all those people who are going to join the course, I'm going to ask this question again after, let's say, 4 weeks, and how many of you are practicing actually? All right. Any other questions? Enough of my lecture. All right. If you do not have any questions, thank you so much for joining the demo. Hoping to see you all on Monday, 8 a.m. Okay. And yep, we'll have great time learning together.
Thanks
That's
for your
great.
time, Karan. Actually, it is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Sheshu, if you're still on the call, you could, my colleagues from Career IT, Lakshmi and Vijaya will call you and inform about the prices, course details. Okay, they'll contact you.
Hi Kiran, can I ask one thing? Hi,
Yeah, please
hi
go ahead.
Kiran.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, I am completely from non-IT. I
Yeah.
work for Vivo and Cognizant many years, and my age is like 40.
Sorry,
Uh,
what? Your voice broke.
Actually, I worked in BPO for
Okay. Yeah.
almost 8 years, 9 years in
Okay.
Cognizant.
Okay.
But not working now. Actually, when lockdown projects are very less, and I went to bench and I resigned actually at that time. So
Okay.
now I can spend the time, more time for this.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, can I get hands-on in this course?
Yeah. We'll do a lot of hands-on, Shashi. So as I said, every day after the class, you'll have to practice these things. Okay, whatever I'm going to teach you is more going to be hands-on rather than simple theoretical, right? So every day, once not in the initial 1 2 weeks, but later, every day you will have some kind of thing to practice. Whatever I do in the course, you need to practice the next day. Okay, so it will be more hands-on. So, but you can spend additional time also going through some YouTube videos or going through some tasks. Okay, practicing harder than others. Okay, because you're non-IT, so you need to put additional effort. So yes, I will give you all the required things that you need to practice upon, and you can continue practicing upon that.
Once I completed this and practiced, can I get the job easily?
See that, yeah, that's a uh, that's a good question, but I
Mm.
cannot promise anything like that. Okay, because it depends upon various factors, right? So it depends upon how many amount of calls you're getting and how can you justify your career in Cognizant, because I don't know what you're going to get in your resume. Sorry, in your relieving letter. Okay, so if it gives something like an engineer or something, you can say that, okay, I joined as a BPO engineer, BPO representative, but later I moved to DevOps. So that is something you still need to work out on. How can you justify your um, tenure as a DevOps engineer, or are you going to start as a fresher? If you're going to start as a fresher in IT, it's going to be very difficult, not easy, in terms of your salary expectations and other things. But if you can somehow manage that, you have like 2 to 3 years of experience within Cognizant and somewhere else that you worked as a uh, you know DevOps engineer, it will be easy. So job, yes.
Okay. If if I put an experience of 2 to 3 years, uh, after I seriously learned this course and practiced well, uh, can I survive in once I crack the job? Once I crack the job, can I survive in it? Hello.
Oh, sorry, it went into mute. Shashi, so what I was saying was, yes,
Mm,
yeah, yes, there will be definitely um, good amount of work you need to do, but yes, you would definitely survive provided you have, followed my classes, practiced, and you know, there is again some aspect which is not in my control, the logical application, right? When you're working on these things, it's always about being on your toes, understanding these things and all that. Yes, initially there would be some challenges, but uh, I'll tell you honestly, like, in the market there is a lot of people who have, like, minimal knowledge, but they're somehow getting into the jobs. Those people are surviving, so why can't you survive if you have already practiced all these things very well, right? So don't worry
okay.
about that.
One more
So
thing.
one, if you get into the job, yes, you can definitely
Mm,
strive. I mean, you can definitely shine there, no doubt about it.
uh, uh,
Yeah, go on.
can they ask already you are in BPO many years and they consider age and background and educational background everything, or we have the good knowledge in and we knowledge in this concept, uh, it's okay.
Yeah, Sashi, that's a challenge. I mean, when I say challenge, that's a
Mm,
wide issue, and I cannot comment directly, right? See, there are
mm,
some organizations which do not carry, which do not worry about your educational qualifications. For example, I myself am not a BTech. Okay, I've never done my BTech. I've never done
mm,
my masters. I'm just a BSc. Okay,
mm,
but I've also started in a BPO long back, very very long back, uh,
mm,
15 16 years ago. But I moved
mm,
from there after 3 4 years in BPO. Okay,
mm,
but no one has ever asked me about my background, like, BSc and my credentials, like my marks and all that stuff. Okay, maybe I'm lucky or maybe I'm not, but yeah, never that was never a problem for me. But I cannot comment upon these things because the recruiting itself is a complex process. um, yeah, so different people have different things. Okay, uh, maybe you can speak to Kondalarao garu from Career IT and he might give you some more suggestions, but I'm not sure. Okay, I cannot talk about the recruitment part, but definitely skill wise you will be very much prepared.
okay. That is what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Eh,
yeah,
I prepared well skill wise and I have I got if I got good knowledge, then
yeah.
they consider to take it. They forget about every background and everything. That is what I
Huh, but again, like I said, right, the requirement is at least, you know at least 2 to 3 years of knowledge in a DevOps role if you're applying for a DevOps role. But if you're applying for a Cloud Ops role, again, I am not sure about how these things are going to work in terms of your you know salary expectations, because you already have some experience in Cognizant, right? So what are your
Mm.
salary expectations, and can they hire you in such a position with so much experience? So these things might vary from company to company, but there is a lot of demand, there is a lot of requirement for DevOps folks. That is the positive sign. But again, you might have to talk to other people about these recruitment hurdles. But if you're able to cross these hurdles, definitely you will do very well in interviews and also in the job. That much I can guarantee.
Do they consider age also?
Again, I cannot comment on that, Sashi.
Okay.
I'm not really sure about how, because I do take interviews, but when I take interview, what I evaluate is the person's resume and how they are matching the resume with the answers, right? Or
Okay.
the skill set. So
Mm.
the filtration, and I don't take the call on who has to be recruited, but I can say if this person is suitable for recruitment or not. So the initial selection is done by HR, the final selection is done by my boss. Okay. Uh,
Mm.
So yeah, I cannot comment on those things. Maybe you can speak to someone who is, already doing this recruitment and stuff.
Okay, okay.
All right.
Here, I came to know that Azure DevOps means Azure 80% and DevOps 20%. Here, DevOps with Azure, so DevOps 80%, Azure 20%. Uh,
No.
explain.
What do you mean by Azure DevOps? See, Azure
Actually,
DevOps is just one tool, Shashi. Azure DevOps is just one tool. It's one technology which is a combination of 3 4 tools. Okay. Uh, but Azure DevOps itself is not a uh, engineer role. It will be one of the skill sets that will be required from a DevOps engineer. Okay. So Azure is a public cloud. Azure DevOps is just one tool. That's Microsoft is confused all of us with those names. Okay. Azure DevOps doesn't mean it's a skill set or something. It's a simple tool. Okay. So we are learning both Azure and DevOps. It's not like 20%, 40%. We are learning Azure in good measure as well. Okay. All the
okay.
all the training you required for DevOps will be taught in this course.
With Azure Cloud only.
With Azure, everything is on Azure. Yeah. Whatever you want to practice, the Terraform, we are going to learn how to create resources on Azure with Terraform. Okay. You're creating Ansible, where do you create VMs? On Azure. Okay. You're practicing Docker, where do you create those? On Azure.
Okay, thank you, Sasi. Thank you, Kiran.
Thanks, Shashi, and have a good day.
Thank you.